Hey guys, it's Luke, and a while ago I thought it would be fun for me to do a video of me ranking all the Pixar movies, so that's what we're going to be doing today. So I hope you guys enjoy it, and you guys will likely disagree with some of my rankings, but as long as you respect my opinions, I will respect yours in turn. Okay, let's get started. So, to start things off, my least favorite Pixar movie is Lightyear. Now, I don't think this is a bad movie, I think it's decent overall. But what makes me call this my least favorite Pixar movie is mainly because it's admittedly not very memorable, and it also in general feels unnecessary and doesn't really feel like it fits in the Toy Story universe. And I say that because Buzz doesn't feel like the same character that he is in the Toy Story movies. He's not shown to be a space ranger for a big majority of the film, and the twist of Zurg being an older Buzz from the future is honestly quite weak of a twist and doesn't really make sense. But there are still things to like about it, such as the amazing animation, Socks being a fun character, the cool fight scenes, and it does have a good message about not being too obsessed with something and learning to work with others. So overall, I don't agree with this being Andy's favorite movie, but it's still good overall. Moving on to The Good Dinosaur, while this is more enjoyable than Lightyear, to me it's still among my lesser favorite Pixar films for a few reasons. The first is that while the premise of the asteroid not hitting Earth seems to imply that the dinosaurs would live in the same modern era as humans, it's instead the story of a cave-going dinosaur on a typical journey to return home. And the other reasons are that the movie overall just doesn't feel as emotional as a lot of Pixar's other films. The cartoony design of the dinosaurs doesn't fit very well with the realistic-looking backgrounds. But there are still things to like about the movie, such as how great the animation is on the backgrounds, the character arc Arlo goes through of learning to be less fearful, the bond he has with Spot, which is pretty sweet, and the fact that it's still a fun movie overall. So while it's definitely not Pixar's best, it's still worth watching. Now we come to Pixar's only critical failure, Cars 2. While I do see this movie as one of my lesser favorites from Pixar, I don't think it sucks. I found the movie to be pretty fun overall since I think the spy story is entertaining, and I personally don't mind that it's a change of pace from the first Cars. Finn and Holly are fun characters, and I can connect with Mary's character arc since I've had instances of doing things without acknowledging the feelings of other people, though I've improved on that now, and I can also resonate with the part of McQueen telling Mary to act different before later telling him to just be himself, because I've been told in the past to keep some things myself because of how they might make others feel, but that's never really been a problem for me, though I do understand why I've been told that. But despite those things, I do agree that the movie has some flaws. The first is I think the movie should have been rated PG instead of G due to all the deaths and violent moments. Additionally, I do think there were moments that would have made Finn and Holly realize that Mary wasn't the real agent before he told them in London. So overall, definitely not one of Pixar's best, but I don't think it's as bad as others say it is, though I still respect their opinions regardless. Now, with Brave, while I can agree with many that this is one of the lesser favorite movies from Pixar, I still really like it and find it to be quite underrated. What I like about it is that it's an overall enjoyable movie with a good story. The character arcs are done well, with Merida learning to be less stubborn and defiant, and Eleanor learning to be less controlling over Merida's life. It has good action scenes. Mordu is quite an intimidating villain, and as expected from Pixar, the visuals are great. But what puts this film to a low ranking for me is that in general it doesn't feel as amazing as a lot of Pixar's other works, and the story at times is a bit predictable. But even if it's not one of my favorites from Pixar, I still really like it overall. Now on to Cars 3. So I can agree with others that this film is better than Cars 2, though I still like that film, but I still count this as one of my lesser favorites from Pixar since I don't find it to be amazing. But despite that, I still really like the movie. What I like about it is its theme of McQueen feeling like his racing days might soon be coming to an end and trying to show that he can still be a good racer even with the new generation of racers. Cruz is a great new addition to the franchise, and the scene where she wins the floor race at the end is my favorite part of the movie. The homages to Doc and Paul Newman are great. McQueen's arc of realizing that it'll never be as fast as Storm and him deciding to let Cruz race in his place at the end are both great. The movie is overall pretty fun and enjoyable. Though if there are any critiques I'd give to this film, one would be that while it's nice that Pixar did take the feedback from Cars 2 into consideration when making this movie, I feel like it would have been nice if the film explained why some of the characters from Cars 2 aren't seen or mentioned, since it does give off an impression that it's pertaining to events of that film never happened. Additionally, some elements of the story feel like they've been seen before, such as a character not wanting to work with someone, not just experiencing them before eventually warming up to him. So overall, even if it's not one of my favorite Pixar films, or even favorite Cars films, it's still a really good movie regardless, and worth watching. Now, with Elio, while this is an overall enjoyable movie to me, it in general just doesn't feel as great as a lot of Pixar's other works. And while I'm not entirely sure why I feel that way overall, some reasons I will give for that are the film just doesn't feel quite as emotional as some of Pixar's other works, though there's still a good amount of heart in the film. Lord Ragon is, while a good dad to Gordon, not the best antagonist from Pixar, and there are some story elements that are a bit predictable, such as Elio eventually deciding to give Earth a chance, and that the aliens would eventually find out that he isn't the leader of Earth. But despite those, there are still some things to like about the film, such as the amazing visuals, especially the common universe, and the creative designs of the aliens. The friendship between Elio and Gordon is nice, and they're also both good characters to me. And it's also easy to connect with Elio wanting to find a place that he feels like he belongs to, and his character arc of realizing that he should return to Earth and give it a chance is great as well. So overall, even if this is one of Pixar's weaker films, I'd still recommend it. Now we come to A Bug's Life. While there may be other Pixar films that I prefer over this one, this is still a fun and enjoyable movie to me. What I like about it is that it tells an overall good story, the characters are fun and enjoyable, and I'd say that Flick is a good protagonist. Hopper's a great villain, the animation is really nice, and it's got a good amount of funny moments. Though what keeps this from being higher for me is that some story elements are things seen in other films as well, such as characters pretending to be something they're not before it's eventually revealed, and the protagonist not being liked by others at first for being different before being eventually liked by them. But even with those, this is still a pretty fun movie to watch. Next is Monsters University. While it's not as great as Monsters Inc., in my opinion, I think it's still a really fun and enjoyable movie. The story of how Mike and Sully met were first rivals before eventually warming up to each other and becoming the friends that we know them as in Monsters Inc. is good, and then both learning from each other what it means to be a scare and that not every monster can be scary is good as well. And another thing I like about the film is it telling us that we may not always end up with the career slash dream life we hope for, since Mike doesn't end up becoming a scarer and he and Sully both get expelled from the university at the end. We can always find another career that we'll enjoy. So again, despite not being as great as Monsters Inc., it's still a really good movie to me. And additionally, since this is the only prequel Pixar has ever made, I think it'd be interesting if they made another prequel film to another one of their properties. Now we come to the first Cars. While there may be other Pixar films that I like more than this one, I still think this movie is really fun and enjoyable. It tells a good story about McQueen learning to be less selfish and that there's more to life than just racing and fame. And the scene where he forfeits the race to help the king at the end really shows his growth as a character. The characters are pretty fun, and Mater's easily the best character. The soundtrack is great, and Life is a Highway is still quite iconic. So yeah, there may be better Pixar films than this to me, but this is still a really fun movie, and I think it's kinda underappreciated. Now on to Toy Story 4. While Lightyear may be the overall weakest movie in the Toy Story franchise, I would say that this movie is the weakest of the 5 main Toy Story movies. And I say that because it does feel like it lacks a bit of what made the first 3 movies a 10 out of 10 to me, and the subplot about Buzz's inner voice doesn't really have much of a purpose in the story, and I feel like the film could have worked better without it. But despite that, this is still a really good movie in my opinion. What I like about it is Woody's arc of learning that there's more to being a toy than just being owned and played with by a kid. Forky is quite a memorable character, and Tony Hale's voice fits him pretty well. And the movie overall does a good job showing that there could be more to tell after the 3rd movie. So while it's not the best Toy Story movie to me, I think it's still really good overall. Next is Finding Dory. While I wouldn't say this movie is as good as Finding Nemo since some story elements are reused from before, it's still a great movie overall, and what I like about it is that the story is still engaging and fun nonetheless. It's got a good amount of heart in it, especially the scene where Dory reunites with her parents. The new characters are all fun and likable, and the climax of the film is really entertaining to watch. So even if it's not as good as its predecessor, it's still a great movie to watch. And additionally, I had a lot of fun seeing this film at the Pixar Studios back in 2016. Moving on to Incredibles 2, while this film isn't quite as incredible, pun intended, as the first film, since some story elements are reused from before, such as one parent going on a mission and the other one staying at home, and Evelyn Dever is definitely no Syndrome, but still a pretty good villain overall. I think the movie is still really good overall, since it has great action sequences. It's nice seeing Bob improving as a dad and trying to help the kids out, even with it exhausting him, and it's still funny and enjoyable. It's cool seeing more of Jack Jack's powers from what was seen in the first film and the Jack Jack attack rate. The superheroes introduced in the film are enjoyable characters, and it's also nice that the superheroes become legal again at the end of the film. And since we are getting a 3rd Incredibles movie, I'll say now that I'm looking forward to seeing it when it comes out. Now on to Onward. While I can agree with other people that Pixar has done better than this, I still really like the movie overall. It's fun to watch, it's got a good amount of heart in it, Ian and Barley are fun characters, and Tom Holland and Chris Pratt did great voice in them. And Ian's character arc of realizing that while he never knew his dad like Barley did, he always had Barley as a father figure to him is great as well. So again, not one of Pixar's best, since from watching the film it's clear they've done better movies, but still worth watching. And I was also able to see this in theaters just before the pandemic started back in 2020. Now, with Luca, I find this movie to be pretty fun and enjoyable overall. What I like about it is that Luca, Alberto, and Julia are all fun and likable characters, the visuals are great, and the film pays good homages to two Ghibli films. The voice acting is great, the film does a good job portraying Italian culture, and fittingly, this film was released a few months before I went on a trip to Italy with my dad and sister back in 2021. The arcs that the characters go through are well done, and the scene of Luca revealing a sea monster form to save Alberto from Ercole is great. Though if there are any critiques I would give to this film, one would be that the film does feature some story elements seen before in other films, and one example of that is that with Luca wanting to explore the surface, it can easily make you think of Ariel from The Little Mermaid, and even Ponyo as well. Another critique I'd give is that while I can understand him feeling this way due to being abandoned by his father and fearing being alone again, the scenes of Alberto feeling jealous of Julia and Luca spending time together weren't that great to watch, though you do easily feel bad for him during the sea monster part. But even if it's my least favorite of the 3 Pixar films that went straight to Disney+, it's still a great movie in my opinion. And additionally, when this Soul and Trainwreck finally got their time on the big screen in 2024, I had fun seeing all of them in theaters. Now, with Elemental, I honestly find this film to be both pretty underrated and a really good movie in general. And what I like about this movie is its amazing and colorful visuals, and Element City is in my top 5 anime movie backgrounds. The film tells a good story, and Ember goes through a good character arc of realizing that what she thinks she wants isn't what she truly wants. The steal the show shine is great, and the movie in general is quite emotional, especially at the end. Though if there are any negatives I have with this movie, there are 2 I can think of. The first is that there are some story elements, pun intended, that feel like they've been seen before in other films. The second is that the scene where Bernie says to Ember that his shop was never his dream is a bit contradictory to the scene at the beginning where he says to her that the shop is the family's dream. But despite those, I still really like the movie overall and would say that it's worth watching. Next is Inside Out 2. While I think this film isn't quite as good as the first one, it's still an amazing sequel overall. It does a good job showing what happens inside a teenager's mind during puberty with both the old and new emotions. The voice acting is amazing, the scene with the anxiety attack is very well done, and the message about accepting both the good and bad parts of yourself is also great. So even if it doesn't quite reach the amazingness of the first movie, it's still a great Pixar sequel, and I think it would be great to get more Inside Out movies since there could be more to tell for Riley's story. Now we go from one sequel to another with Pixar's newest film, Toy Story 5. While I think this film isn't quite as good as the first three, the main reasons why I like it more than the fourth one are because Jesse does a great job taking the lead role in the story, since at this point Woody's growth as a character feels complete. It's got a lot of heart in the story, especially the moment where Jesse learned that she was still a part of Emily's life even after being given away by her. Taylor Swift's I Knew It, I Knew You song is enjoyable, and the story is quite accurate how we mostly focus on tech rather than toys nowadays. And I also like that the story ends with Bonnie taking time for both their toys and Lily Pads chose to just the latter. But despite those things, I do think the movie still has a few flaws, such as the fact that the side characters don't really contribute much to the story, the humor is kind of hit and miss, and with the subplot of the army of Buzz Lightyear toys, while I like that they helped out in the climax, I do feel like some of their scenes prior weren't all needed. But regardless, I still really enjoyed this movie, so if you haven't seen it, I'd recommend it. Now, with Ratatouille, I'd say this is both one of Pixar's most creative films, and one that I feel like I can connect with in terms of its message. In the case of the former, I think the concept of a rat wanting to cook and become a chef is quite unique. And in the case of the latter, I personally love to cook and bake as well, which applies to not just me, but my older sister as well. And since those things apply to art making, which I love to do, I can connect with the message of how not everyone can be a great artist, but a great artist can come from anywhere. So yeah, one of Pixar's most creative films, and I feel like it works great as a standalone movie. I say that because Brad Bird has said that he doesn't want to make a sequel to this film, and I can understand why. Now on to another amazing Pixar classic, WALL-E. And yeah, there's a lot to love about this film, such as the fact that it's a reminder to us that we need to be environmentally conscious and take care of our planet, which is my overall favorite thing about the movie. And the film also does a really good job in showing the potential outcome of what can happen if we don't take care of the environment and the planet. And other things that I love about this movie are WALL-E and Eve being great, memorable characters, the beginning of which the story begins with no dialogue, yet we can understand what's happening in the movie, the I don't want to survive, I want to live line from the captain, since it's relatable. And that it's quite a sad and emotional movie, as you'd expect from Pixar, especially during the film's ending. So yeah, easily another classic from Pixar, and it's also a great reminder to us to take care of the planet and be environmentally conscious. Now we come to another one of Pixar's classics, Monsters, Inc. I'd say that my favorite things about this movie are its clever take on the idea of monsters hiding in a child's closet, in that it's what they do for work, and that there's a whole world of monsters behind those closet doors. Mike and Sully being a memorable and iconic duo, and Billy Crystal and John Goodman did great voice them, and Sully's arc realizing how being a scare affects children, and him and Mike deciding to make them laugh instead of scream since it's revealed to be more powerful. And aside from those, there's more to like about the film, such as the heartfelt scenes in the film, Randall and Waternoose being good villains, Ross being a funny character, and the fact that it's a film that you'll always enjoy anytime you watch it. So yeah, another great classic film from Pixar. Now on to Hoppers. While I was expecting the film to be great when I first saw it, I went out of it feeling like the movie was overall really great and a 10 out of 10 to me. And that's because of its great and enjoyable story with a great message about preserving nature. It has a good amount of unexpected twists and turns since there are things that happen in the movie that I didn't expect to happen. Maple is a great and relatable protagonist, the climax is quite intense and engaging, and the movie is overall just another great time, as you'd expect from Pixar. So if you haven't seen it, I absolutely recommend checking it out. Now we come to the movie that started it all, not just for Pixar, but also for fully computer animated movies, the original Toy Story. And what makes this a great start for both things is that the movie itself is phenomenal, with a great story that goes into the perspective of a toy when things are changing for them and their owner, such as getting a new toy they like more or moving to a new place. Buzz and Woody go through great character arcs in the film, Buzz accepting that he's a toy and realizing what being a toy means to Andy, and Woody learning to overcome his jealousy and not give up on Andy. And the film's visuals still look great today. So yeah, this was a great movie to start off the era of fully computer animated films. Now, with Toy Story 2, while I wouldn't say that this is my favorite film in the franchise, though I do understand why others would say that, this is still a phenomenal sequel and better than the first movie, which I can agree with other people on. And what makes this an amazing sequel to me is that it has a great story with a great message to the toys about how when their kids will grow up, they should be there for them, and that life as a toy is only worth living if they're being loved by a kid. And it works well with Woody's arc of being tempted by a life of immortality in a museum before deciding to return to Andy. The new and returning characters are great, and the movie is quite emotional, and I still feel emotional when watching the When She Loved Me montage. So yeah, I'd say that all the effort the filmmakers had to go through to make this movie was absolutely worth it, since it turned out to be a phenomenal first sequel for the studio. Next up is Finding Nemo, and yeah, this is another one of those movies where there's so much to love about it, such as its amazing story, fun and memorable characters, Marlin's arc of learning to be less overprotective, the accurate scientific facts about the sea creatures, visuals that still look great today, and the fact that it's a movie that'll get you engaged and enjoying it right away. And yeah, it's definitely one of those movies that you'll always enjoy no matter how many times you watch it. Moving on to Soul, this is an absolutely phenomenal movie and an easy 10 out of 10 to me. That's because it has a great message about what it means to live and that we should take time to enjoy the little things in life and not just focus on one thing since it may not make us happy in the end, and that we don't need a purpose in life in order to live. And I can relate to that message because I'm currently at a phase where I don't really know what it is I want to do with my life, but I don't like to think too far ahead into the future. I like to stay in the present moment and focus on what's currently happening. And that really connects with the ending line in the movie where after Joe is asked how he'll spend his life, he says, "I'm not sure, but I do know I'm going to live every minute of it." So yeah, it's a great movie to watch when you're feeling unsure about how you want to live your life. Next is the first Inside Out, and yeah, this movie is amazing and quite an emotional, pun intended, roller coaster. It goes very creative into showing what goes on in Riley's mind. The characters are all great, and Joy's character arc of learning sadness' purpose as an emotion for Riley is great as well. All the actors do amazing with their voiceover performances, and as a movie about emotions, it fittingly makes you feel a lot of different emotions. And I think the parts where you feel emotional the most are when Bing Bong sacrifices himself for Joy, and when Joy lets sadness drive at the end of the movie. So yeah, it's a great movie to watch anytime. Next is Coco, and this has been a film I've loved ever since I saw it in theaters, and there's really a lot to love about it, such as the stunning animation, and Land of the Dead is in my top 5 animated movie backgrounds. Incredible voice acting, the great message about how family matters more than anything else, the film's respect and accuracy towards Mexican culture, and as someone who celebrated Dia de los Muertos in high school, I really appreciate all the homework Pixar did on that for this film. Ernesto being an amazing villain, and the twist of him being the villain is done very well, since it serves the story purpose and the emotional moments, especially the scene of Miguel playing Remember Me for Coco. So yeah, it's a movie you'll always enjoy no matter how many times you watch it. And lastly, since the film's getting a sequel, I'll say now that I'm unsure how the story could continue, but I'll go into it with an open mind when it comes out. Now on to The Incredibles, which is quite an incredible, pun intended, film. The story it tells going into a topic of what happens when a superhero is forced to live a normal life and not do hero work is great, since Bob is shown to miss being a hero while being forced to live undercover and want to relive his glory days, before eventually realizing that he's been taking the life he has with his family for granted and learning to be a better family member to Helen and the kids. And there's a lot more to love about the movie, such as Syndrome being an amazing villain, and he's my personal favorite Pixar villain. The fight and action sequences are great, and one of my favorites is Dash running at water. Edinburgh is quite funny and iconic, and Brad Bird does a great job voicing her. The Where's My Super Suit part is still funny, and it's overall just a great movie that you'll always enjoy no matter how many times you watch it. So yeah, one of Pixar's best and my second favorite animated film from Brad Bird, Behind the Iron Giant. Now we come to my favorite Toy Story movie, Toy Story 3, fittingly at number 3. I see this as the best Toy Story movie because there's so much to love about it, such as the amazing story that dives into the question of what happens to a toy when their child grows up, scenes that'll make you feel different kinds of emotions, some of which will probably still come up even if you've seen this movie many times. And one example for that for me is that the incinerator scene still makes me pretty sad, even though I know the toys get saved. Woody realizing that the attic isn't the right place for his friends and that they should be with another child, Lotso being an amazing villain, and he's my second favorite Pixar villain behind Syndrome, and phenomenal voice acting. And additionally, there's something I like about this film now that was less so the case for me as a kid, which is that I can relate to Andy parting with his toys and moving on to a new phase of its life. And it's nice to think about things in a film that you didn't relate to at first that you do now. So yeah, phenomenal movie and the best Pixar sequel in my opinion. Now, my runner-up favorite Pixar movie is Up, and while the beginning montage of Carl and Ellie's married life is one of the best things about the movie, and I still do get pretty emotional when watching it, there's more that I love about the film as well. The story is quite unique and creative, and whenever the house floats in the air from balloons, it's quite visually pleasing to watch. Doug is quite funny and easily the film's best character. The voice acting is great. Munn serves as both a great villain and a good foil to Carl, since they're both obsessed with completing a goal before Carl changes his mind. And the scene of him finding out from the My Adventure book that while Ellie never fulfilled her dream of going to Paradise Falls, she still lived a good adventure of a life with him is quite heartwarming, and it's quite emotional like a lot of Pixar's other works. And yeah, I'd say that it's not just one of Pixar's best, but also one of animation's best. And at the top of the list is Turning Red. And I mean, yeah, if you know me, you knew this would be at the top. This is still not just my favorite Pixar movie, but favorite movie overall, since, like I've said before, there's a lot of things I love about it and can connect with as well, such as May going through a change in her life and figuring out who she is. And the film came out when I was going through a change in my life, which in my case was starting college. The characters are all great and memorable, and May's bond with her friends is one of the best things about the film to me. The movie has a few scenes that always make me smile, and it's overall just a really great movie to watch. And even after having seen it more than 15 times, I'm not tired of watching it. And that concludes my Pixar ranking list. Well guys, I hope you enjoyed watching this video and have a nice day.